with an M.
That's mug.
Mobile phone.
Right. Okay. Philip.
I have money. I have money here. Money.
I want this one. Right. Okay. Let's start with an item that starts with a B.
I have a mouse.
With what? With what?
A B.
Biro. I have a biro.
I have a book. Yeah, big.
I have a biro.
A book.
He has a bread. Sweet, why are you bringing all food, man?
I have Bible.
Book and bag.
I have
Bringing
Bible.
food because I'm having breakfast.
You have
I
Bible.
have a Bible.
You have a
Bible.
Right. Okay. An item that starts with C.
I'm wearing a cap.
Awesome. Pietro said a car.
Computer.
A computer. I don't see the computer, so how am I supposed to know you have it?
Cotton.
What? Sweet, that's a mug. That's not a cup.
I have a cotton. There's a cotton.
There's a cotton.
That's a blind. That's a blind.
That's a cotton.
Oh, look at you, say blind.
Right.
Hello, how are you? Hope everybody's fine. Hey.
We're fine, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. So I want an item that starts with a K.
I have a key.
Key.
Right.
Kunu as well. I have Kunu here.
I actually thought I was gonna make today a little bit difficult, but actually it's easier than I thought. Okay, let me find an item.
Hello, Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Can I give you Mr. Richard?
Yes. Okay, maybe one more item. An item that starts with a Q. Q. If some of you can mute your mic while you're not speaking, it's okay. So I want an item that starts with a Q.
My keyboard, my laptop keyboard has the letter Q.
That's not Q. That's not Q.
I found something finally that was difficult for everyone.
I have a question here. Yeah.
I have a question here.
That's a question here.
So finally, I can win that. I guess something that
you won, Mr. Richard, you won.
Awesome.
You won, everybody.
Okay, one challenging one. I want a picture. Maybe a family picture or something from your childhood. I like that face, Smith. When you were a child, a baby or something. No one has that as well.
I'm not sure you can see it.
I have it somewhere. I just have to find it.
Difficult to find baby pictures, huh? So that's a difficult one. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Not really.
Yeah. You want sometimes to find them. Wait, that's not a baby picture, Robert. I want picture from where you were
This
in
is
China.
mine. This is mine.
Ah, Crimson.
I see mine.
I see.
Yes.
People digitize these things these days, huh?
It's actually easier to find the soft copy.
I see. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to invite you to do a short exercise called eye yoga. And what I would do is to invite you, if you can, and if you will, put on your camera for those who can. And I'm just going to give an instruction on what to do. So let's start by rubbing our eyes, not so hard, of course. And just make sure that your hands are clean. Corona is real.
Any specific direction?
For now, no.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Let's rub our eyes. Just a second. I'm pulling in this way. Okay. Open it wide. Close it. Rub again. Okay. So now I'm going to tell you to move the eyes in whichever direction I ask you to move the eyes. You need to just move maybe to the left and then to the right, not the head. I just need the eyes rolling to the left and to the right. So if I ask to roll to the left and you roll to the right, it means you lose. And then you need to give the instruction to turn. Do you get a point? Do you get the exercise?
Yeah.
So now let's roll our eyes to the right. I can only see you if you look to the screen and if you have your camera on, so I will know those who are cheating. To the left. Not the head, Smith. Just the eyes.
Just the eyes.
To the right. Very. I caught you. You were moving it left and right. Okay, let's get it again. So to the left. To the right. Left. 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 Right. Smith, you didn't move, so you have to. So you lost. I caught you, Smith. You were not moving the eyes. No, you lost. Okay, so you need to give the instruction which direction we should move our eyes.
I'm the one giving directions.
Yes, and you need to watch.
Okay.
For those who don't move the eyes in the direction you asked, they lose, and you have to invite them to.
Okay, no problem then. So I need everybody to move their eyes up. Yeah, right. It was down since Richard.
No, mine was up.
Okay, move your eyes to the left. To the left. Crimson, you went to the right. Oh, okay. So wait, Richard, you know there's a confusion. We're Africans. When you say left, is it my left or your left?
Our left, so it will be your right.
It's left.
See my point?
What if somebody is driving?
Well, don't do it.
Do that.
Your eyes can go, not the steering.
You're not serious.
What if somebody is driving? Move left.
If you're driving, don't do it.
Don't, you are inside the car, don't move.
Okay, one last one. I think everybody will fail this one.
Yeah. Okay.
So I need everybody to move their eyes around clockwise. Around clockwise.
Okay,
Not your head, Richard. Not with your head, Richard. Crimsy, your head was moving. Your cap exposed you. Dr. Emmanuel, your head is moving.
My eyes are small. My eyes are small. You can't actually see them.
Your heart exposed you. It was going up and down.
No. It was my eyes. I was making an effort.
Dr. Emmanuel, your head was moving.
Okay, Carol, I hope he's not there.
Yeah. All right.
Your eyebrows are moving.
Thank you so much. I think it was fun. Thanks for
I
participating.
didn't get anybody that got it. I didn't see you say someone got
We all did. We all did.
Only saw those that didn't get it. But, because
Yeah,
I know I got it right.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't call you, it means you got it right. For those who didn't get it right, we call them out to shame them.
Okay.
No, it's not to shame them. I'm kidding. It was more to But thanks all. I think you all did great. Both with the treasure hunt and with the item. So I would mute the mic now so we can begin. So thank you and welcome to the third. Just a second. Yep. Okay, let me invite you to unmute your mic now, if you can. Yeah. Thank you and welcome to the third day of the second week and of course the last day of our session. Yesterday we started talking about participation at different levels and what is meaningful participation for us. And we also highlighted some examples of how we can foster participation in society, which included looking at the children-led initiative or youth-led initiative, youth clubs, forums, associations of young people and children, and initiatives of this nature. So this morning we wanted to start with presenting some of these kind of examples of children and youth-led initiatives, specifically focusing on children and how this foster participation in the peace process, but generally, I would say in the positive peace framework, because then this cut across different sectors of society development and how young people and children also bring positive solutions to transforming their society. So to start in this aspect, I would give the word to my colleague Sushit, who will lead us in that aspect.
Thank you, Richard. Just to recap yesterday's, what Richard was introducing to us, the ladder of participation. I wanted to remind us when we try to encourage children and youth-led initiatives, it is to have these higher levels of participation, not just them participating in activities that we've organized, but initiatives that they conceive and they initiate and they lead in collaboration with adults and supported by adults. So those kind of initiatives fall at the highest levels of participation. That would be around 7 or 8. And I think that's what we need to aspire for while we create activities for children and young people. We need to also then take that progressively to create more higher levels of participation where they lead initiatives. And that is what we are encouraging you to also build throughout the programs that we will implement. And then we also introduced to you some key elements of pedagogy or educational approach that we need to put in place. It's not that people will suddenly take initiative and start an initiative. It needs to have a learning approach. It needs to have an educational approach so that we can empower them to take their own initiatives. And it's sometimes needs some elements in that educational approach is what we highlighted through this transformative pedagogy. And we talked about some of these yesterday. We highlighted the participatory and collaborative learning, but we mentioned about the other things indirectly as well. But you can read more about this in the youth guide, and you can think of how you incorporate this educational approach into the programs that you will run with children and young people. Then today, we really want to go more focused into initiatives led by children and young people. I want to start off with sharing some examples of such initiatives where children and young people build peace in our communities. This particular example comes from Kenya and was part of a program that we ran with the Ministry of Education and UNESCO in Kenya, in an area called Tana River. There we engaged 13 schools in a non-formal educational program that complemented their formal classroom activities, building on the life skill lessons. So we had a training for a group of teachers from these schools. From each school, we had 2 teachers, and then they went and led these activities. And part of the program design over that 1 year was that they went through some lessons, and at the end, they had to implement a project as well. And finally, after the projects were implemented, they came back together and held a peace celebration on the 21st of September, sharing their achievements with the larger community, organized as a community activity in a large venue in this area in Tana River. And there were different projects that different schools ran. I want to highlight one of these where they ran a project because this community is a community that was affected by violence. Pastoralists and farmers in this area often fight, and in the previous election cycle, they had violence and killings. And that meant that some of the children who were pastoralist children who were in the farmers area and in those schools left the schools and
Suchit, excuse me, can you raise your voice, please? People are asking for you to raise your voice.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Me see. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Is it better now?
Yes, now
Yes.
it's better. It's loud, yes.
Okay, sorry. So the communities were affected by violence, and these were pastoralists and farmers. And in the previous election cycle, they had really, there was killings between these 2 communities. And that meant that children were fearing to go to the school in the other community. Some children were crossing the communities to go to school, but because of this violence, they left school and went back to their own communities and never came back to school. So when we went through these educational activities with these children over a few months, one of the things that they wanted to do when they came up to the idea of thinking of a project was to reconcile their relationship with this other community. And they wanted to invite the children who left the school to come back. There was a river Tana in this area that divides these 2 communities. They were one of the first groups to cross this river since the conflict. Children cross the river and reach out to the other community to bring the children from the other community who left the school to come back and enroll. So a meaningful initiative with the children involved and really leading this with the support of the teachers and the school. And that's a very powerful example, even at the level of a UN organization. That would be a very meaningful initiative when we bring back children to those who left school, when we bring them back to school. That's an important achievement. And this achievement was led by children in this case. So I always find it a very inspiring example to share. I will then also share some of the, before I come to this particular example, I will share some examples that are in the youth guide. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to, I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at these examples, okay, sorry. Give me a second to open that. But these are concrete examples that different youth organizations have led and are implementing, that are supporting peace in their communities. And so I'm having some case studies at the end of this youth guide that we have developed with IGBA. And you can read about these youth organizations that are implementing concrete projects or different types of initiatives that support peace building. So let me share the youth guide. And if you, and we go to the very end of the youth guide, scroll. So actually, there's a section of lots of activities that you can do with youth and children that can really prepare them to take their own initiatives later on. And you can look at those here. But at the very end, then we introduce case studies. Okay, right here. If you go through these, there are different case studies of different examples where children, mostly young people in these case studies, have led initiatives around peace building. So one of them is from Morocco. It's a project that is supported by an NGO called SimSim, and it uses technology for encouraging young people's political participation. Youth, they run a youth ambassadors program, and through that they empower young people to take initiatives, and so they are engaged in directly with members of the parliament. So at a very high level of advocacy work that these young people are engaged in, and this program looks to empower them to take this advocacy work with the parliament. I'm not going to go through all of these examples. Then there's an example of another youth organization that's running awareness programs and communication campaigns, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic in Senegal. Another initiative that's really supporting in Cameroon that empowers through one program called One Cameroon. And they're trying to promote tolerance, respect, and accept differences between different cultures and languages. So young people are part of leading this campaign throughout Cameroon. And they are bringing this Christian, Muslim, and traditionalist communities together and creating dialogue, and also sensitizing people about the rights of persons with disabilities. So these are all concrete examples, and then maybe I highlight also this idea of peace clubs. I think we also talked about it yesterday. Somebody highlighted peace clubs. Often in different countries, they are called either peace clubs or some other name. This example is from Tanzania. They have school-based peace clubs, and that becomes a very strong opportunity, because in the curriculum itself, sometimes the school is so busy, there are so many things going on that they cannot allocate time to do this kind of meaningful peace building activities. But then the peace club becomes an avenue to do non-formal activities in the school, after school hours sometimes, and they can create projects and take their own initiatives to promote peace within their communities. If you look at the activities here, you will also find more guidelines in this guide about how to establish peace clubs. So here, for example, activity 15 talks about peace clubs, and some guidelines from how to establish peace clubs, etc. That can be part of the structures that you create. There is also possibilities for you to really help children and young people lead their projects, and you can connect them to the Sustainable Development Goals or the 8 pillars of peace. So initiatives that are thematic and responding to some of the challenges they face. Some of these can be on social media. So there can be radio-based, social media-based programs that address awareness raising and highlighting sensitivities. So I think many of you would already have examples yourselves and experiences yourself. So we look forward to hearing about those later today in this session. But then I come back to this other example I wanted to share as a final example. This is an initiative we've been leading in order to encourage youth-led, children-led initiatives. In our case, children-led, because we mainly focus on below 18, but in your case, you can expand this sort of initiative to young youth above 18 as well. And this is called Children Solutions Lab. So it's the idea of incubators, youth incubators, solutions lab, So you bring people together, you have them discuss and engage with one another about specific issues that affect them or about a theme. And in this particular case, it was about poverty and how education can respond to challenges of poverty. We ran this as a campaign or a program that was global. So different countries, children's groups could apply to be part of this. They would come up with an idea at an event that was organized. And then from that idea, they could come up with a solution of the project they want to implement, and they can actually receive a small micro grant to support as well. In the last year's Children Solutions Lab we ran, there were 5 proposals of 5 solutions that were selected to be supported, and we gave a small micro grant to support those initiatives. And in this case, the number 1 solution came from Cuba, and it was bridging the digital gap. These children knew that in Cuba, access to internet and access to educational materials was very limited. So they actually wanted to print out educational material and take those to the children who didn't have access to education. So a very small thing, but at their capacity, that was a problem they saw and the solution they came up with. And that's what we recognized and tried to support. Similarly, there was other solutions in India. In their case, it was about building capacity. So they wanted to create safe spaces during the pandemic for children to come together, engage with one another when education was disrupted. So they ran these educational spaces to support children whose education was disrupted. In Peru, they decided to run a small food garden to enhance food security. There was an initiative in Serbia that was more about, that was around Christmas time. They conceived this idea of Santa's helpers. So they wanted to approach refugee children and then support those children with school materials, educational materials, and address the needs of the refugee community in Serbia. And then lastly, a campaign in Kenya led by a children's group called the Garissa Children's Lab that was trying to sensitize about girls' education, advocating through community theaters. They had community theater activities around sensitizing about girls' education, and even meeting education officials and really delivering advocacy messages to promote girls' access to education. So this is another example of a structure that we created, a small program that we created looking to empower children and young people to take initiative. By doing that at a global level, we try to also support these organizations behind these children's groups to enhance their own spaces for participation as well. So just to quickly highlight, before we open up for dialogue, just to quickly highlight a few things that are important in this kind of process. If we want to really encourage children and young people to take initiatives and lead their own initiatives, then we need to start believing in their potential to transform themselves, but not just themselves, but also their communities, their ability to work together. And in doing that, we need to relate to them at an equal level. If we always think we know better, you need to follow us, then they will not be empowered to take initiatives. And we call this kind of relationship a horizontal relationship. Without using power over them, sharing power with them. And that sort of relationship can enable children to feel that they have their space and ability and capacity, and that they are supported to take initiatives. So this is a very important thing. And they need to feel safe and encouraged. So our approach, how do we encourage young people, and how do we make them feel safe to test their ideas, even if it doesn't come out exactly the way they planned it? How do we support them to learn from those and go ahead and find solutions is important. And we've realized also connecting to their own realities, the problems that affect them, their own issues, the passions they have. If they are passionate about sports, building a sports-based peace building program, or connecting arts to the program. So building on their passions also has been a very strong way that makes meaning for them. Another realization we've had is that initiatives don't just suddenly come. they need to go through a learning process to think of meaningful initiatives. And that happens when they are exposed to, or they have opportunities to learn about and reflect about what's happening in their societies. So when different groups of children are exposed and they see, maybe I share an example. For example, there was a child in India we worked with who was part of an educational program. As part of this program, they visited a home for children who are affected by HIV and AIDS. And he saw that reality, and that experience touched him, and he felt that he needed to do something. And from that experience, he decided to start collecting a bit of rice from his neighborhood to donate to this home for children affected by HIV/AIDS. And eventually that, with the support of the organization, became a rice bank. And it's a rice bank that different groups of generations of children started to manage and operate, connecting rice and other rations from the community, and started to implement as a structured program with support of different organizations. So initially it was this visit to a children's home. That was the educational experience, the learning experience that created the aha moment for them. When they went, aha, there is this group of people, these children that are more vulnerable than me, and I feel that I want to do something. The empathy, the solidarity was very important, and them taking responsibility in that situation. Often for initiatives to come up, we need to help them look at dialogue among them. So how can we collaborate? So there's ideas among different children, but it's when we dialogue about issues that they can really find out what they can do together. It's important to also encourage their imagination, creativity, finding alternative ways to do things. And then once they come up with ideas, help those ideas to become a reality. This is something we think is very important. When children reflect about what's happening around them, then they'll start to look at those problems meaningfully and find solutions. So we say it's very important to create ethical reflections. Instead of providing very simple solutions, help them look at what's happening around them more critically, more meaningfully. Instead of very simple narratives of what is going on, expand the idea of what is happening in their society. The children then can respond to those. So, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was issues of hygiene and social distancing practices. So if we discuss that problem, children can understand what needs to happen, and they can come up with solutions of what needs to happen. Often during the COVID-19 pandemic, the more vulnerable economically or socially vulnerable groups were isolated, they had issues. So what can we do to support groups like that? If we can create those dialogues among children. There was increased domestic violence during COVID-19. What can we do to address issues of domestic violence or the inequalities we saw in many cases? Also, COVID-19 had overlapping layers of stigma and xenophobia, blaming different communities for spreading COVID-19, this kind of stereotypical discrimination. All of these are things that happen, but we need to encourage the young people to reflect on this and then come up with their solutions and encourage solutions. And I think this is something I shared earlier. If we really engage that context, all these things under 8 pillars of peace is reflective of the reality we live in Nigeria. That context, if we make it part of the program design that we want to implement, part of the learning experience, how they learn and reflect about those issues, then we encourage collective actions by these children and young people that positively contributes to transforming this reality around 8 pillars of peace. So I will not go through all the details, but in order to do that, it's as we said, there is a process of learning that needs to happen. And this learning needs to help children become more aware, think critically about what's happening, reimagine how they relate to one another, solutions, because we often see poverty. We see poverty every day when we are traveling in our community, but we are not always meant to or called to do something about it, right? So how do we create a learning experience that brings to surface this issue of poverty and inequality that we everyday experience, but we do nothing about. How do we encourage that critical thinking? How do we encourage that empathy so that we do something about it? We know in our community, different religious communities have misunderstandings, discrimination. There's sometimes violence between communities. So we know that there is importance for us to reach out to the other community, the other identity group, the ethnic group or religious group. How can we help children and young people to reflect about this need and do things together? So you can look at these ideas more in detail in the youth guide. At this point, we are highlighting them so that you can look at them in more details and see how you incorporate this into the programs you want to run. Just to wrap up then, I want to highlight that in what is our role in this process? We shouldn't take over the project. Sometimes we have this mentality, oh, we are running a project, and then we take over the process, the ownership of the project or the initiative that children and young people want to take. Instead, it becomes our project. We decide what the issue is about. We decide what is going to happen, how it's going to happen. So how do we take a bit more hands-off approach and let them come up with the solutions and play a more supporting role? So how do we ask the questions instead of giving the solutions? How do we help instead of arranging or organizing themselves ourselves? How do we encourage them to find teams, form teams, or divide the tasks and prioritize and make their own plans of how they want to implement their solution? How do we support them to reach out to the community and get the buy-in from the community? When they want to do an initiative, sometimes when children and young people want to do something, often some of the challenges they face that the community or the elders think that we don't need to listen to them. They are too young. They are not going to make a difference. So how do we help the community understand, no, we need to really give them the space. And at the same time, some of you highlighted the importance of resources. The children and young people often have ideas, but are not able to implement those because they don't have the resources. So how do we bring in some stakeholders that can support them with the resources that can help them implement the ideas they have? And throughout this, how do we take on that role of we call it either a mentor or a coach instead of just us leading the project? So these are some ideas for us to consider and to think about as we move forward. Quick ideas and reflections, and then after this, what we are going to do is to go through some case studies and really think more practically about how we can do this. But before that, maybe for quick reflections, if anybody wants to, please raise their hand and I will yield the mic to them. Any questions or reflections? Or was that all of a sudden a lot in the morning? Yes, Philip, I see your hand. Is it Philip?
Yeah, good morning.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I've listened to you, a nice presentation, but I'm a bit confused on, must we follow, can't we be flexible with this approach, based on the environment? Can we go contextually based on what the environment we find ourselves in, entails? Must we follow your outline on the procedures?
No, I think these are meant to be things for you to reflect on and to internalize. They are not prescriptions.
Okay,
but often we are not reflective practitioners. We haven't thought of, we get into and start doing the project and we never think of how do we ensure participation in the process of young people. So these tools are meant for us to take a stop. Yes, we can do it ourselves, but how do we do it instead with a way that more young people are taking an active role? So this is for your own reflections and capacity, and then you can put it into practice as you want. It doesn't have to be a prescriptive approach.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much.
Eric. Go ahead. Sorry. Eric?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. Specifically, reflecting on being a mentor and a coach, it's a very big challenge in terms of, not challenge per se, when working with a team. If you're designing a program, you intend working with children, you want to work with children, there is idea that you want to see. So most times going ahead to design what you think will help them achieve this particular change that you are hoping to see. It's something that I've swept off, like in most programming. This is what we do today. Believe you me, we design the program because if a donor is going to support you or something, you need to tell them what you intend doing. So most times it's not like you are engaging those kids before implementing the program. You design what you intend to do, you do it. So if it's not going your way, sometimes you find a way of polishing it so that it meets the outcome. In other words, you don't want what you've planned, your intended outcome, your intended impact, that is how you want it to be seen. So any case of seeing any changes, it's like your program is not going as planned. You have problem with your donors. So I'm just saying at the places that there is a specific donor, there is something you're going out for, and all of a sudden it's expected that you plan with these children, you coach them, you just guide them through. And maybe alongside, there is a deviation, there is a change. There's a change to what the donors want. How do you fix issues like that? Because that's always been a challenge. It has always been. Psychologically, you find yourself working towards, you want to achieve that expected impact, that expected outcome that you've planned. So cases like this, and you don't want to lose your donor, how do you balance issues like this? Thank you.
Yes, often it's, as you said, it's a psychological framing that we have, that we've gotten stuck into because of this reporting cycles and things like that. But often what donors also want is at the end, the main stakeholder, the beneficiary, or the one that's at the end of the process who's to be empowered, taking initiative, right? So if children and young people are proposing initiatives and things, if that's part of the program design, definitely donors will want to hear from them, and the participation is an aspect of programs that donors want to support. So if you can help them understand, even the donor, how you communicate those changes, saying that this is because of the participation of children and young people that this is happening, then the donor has to listen to you also. Even if the donor comes with a lot of technicalities, at the end, it's children and young people, beneficiaries' needs, the community needs are priority. So it's how we communicate that back and receive the support and the flexibility to go ahead with that. I hope that clarifies, Eric. Hilary.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Please, my own basically is a question that I would like to ask. I don't know if you are familiar with the Almajiri people in the northern part of Nigeria. The Almajiris are basically children that have no access to parental care, and it's mostly young boys between the age of, let me say, 5 and 12. And then they're always seen on the street begging for food and then trying to survive. So my question is this: since these children are looking for ways to survive, the only thing that matters to them is just survival. So how can we actively engage these kind of children in peace building, having in mind that they have no access to parental care, no access to formal education, anything that you are saying and is not pertaining to the way they can survive? I think it will be very difficult for them to listen to you, because some of these children stay for days without even drinking water, let alone talking of speaking. So how can we actively engage these children in peace building? Thank you very much.
And that's often a big challenge when the most vulnerable are sometimes left out, and we imagine solutions only at the level of providing services to them, the basic services to them, and we don't really create opportunities more than that. Often we see this happening to refugees. We provide the basic services, but we don't expect anything more than from those children, right? We sometimes provide them the food and the shelter, but maybe even learning or sports is ignored because the basics is what we focus on. My thinking this, I don't know this particular group of children and young people on the streets, but often I've seen these kind of situations, and also in other similar situations when, for example, there's active gang-related violence and very vulnerable groups involved. The first step is to create a safe space. What that safe space is, whether it's a school or an alternative learning space, or whether you convert a church or a religious place for them to meet in a safe way, you need to create that space that they feel safe and supported. And if they are a vulnerable group without access to the basics, then you need to make sure maybe part of that program, you provide a meal for them in that space. You provide a space that is safe, inclusive space, and then in that space, you provide also some of the basic needs they have. Maybe you support them with some basic sanitary materials, you provide them some basic meals as part of the activities. So while you provide these, you also run learning activities with them. So you invite them to come every day to maybe 1 hour to this center that, or a space that you opened up with the support of the community. And then maybe every day or every other day, there is some activities happening with volunteers involved that creatively engages them. At the beginning, maybe it's just art supplies and engaging them in some art things or some sports things. But over time, then how do you bring in more of what's going on in our society to them and let them express themselves? So how do we accompany them in a process that they start to think that their opinions are valued? Because I don't think anybody will ask, when they're on the streets, nobody is valuing their opinion and they will not express their opinion. So we need to build their confidence, self-worth, so that gradually they start to believe that they belong, that there is a space for them. So I think it's much more difficult with groups like that. Those who are much more vulnerable, they need a much more accompanied process. But I think it's still possible, and I've often seen groups that are rightly supported. They know what the society needs much more than maybe more privileged young people. So if we really support them, then they can lead meaningful solutions.
Yeah, I just wanted to chip in that case, since I understand the context and also know I've been involved in a couple of processes regarding this type of issues as well. But I think that you already highlighted, Sushit. It's not a one-off thing that we have to do a reactive solutions, that when we find an emergency situations, we just provide food and that's the end. But I want to place the emphasis on the need to create that safe spaces, and where they could go. Of course, we could go on the street to serve them the food, but also give them the options, provide them the information that in case they need this kind of safe spaces, there are possibilities to find them in certain locations. And within those spaces, there are animated activity beyond just serving the food and the water, but then there's also that space that they can feel their dignities again. So it's something that you need to plan as a long-term project and not just something you do in a week and go to sleep. So perhaps it's something you need to find collaborations within local communities where this kind of crisis exists, and to see how you plan a long-term impact initiative that can address the needs, but also what is creating those needs in those Almajiri communities.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sushil.
Richard. I saw a question around why education. Why are we talking so much about education? I tried to flag this on Monday also, because IGBA is an institute with a mandate about education. So the second week of the program is about that mandate. IGBA is talking about education for peace building and resilience building. So this is what the training is about. But of course, when you think of education, it's not just conventional school-based formal education we talked about. If you are running activities, whether it's other types of activities that you want to run for peace building, there is always a component, educational component. You often do either, might call it capacity building, or you call it empowerment, or you call it participation. There's an educational component to whatever initiative, whether you want to supply water to the community. You need to work with the community, not just go and put a well somewhere, right? So then that requires educational approach. How do you work with the community? And what we are talking about is an approach for that. So it doesn't need to limit to education, but it is an educational approach that we talk about. I hope that clarifies, and especially the initiatives that children and young people take can go beyond education. They can lead things around other thematics of environment to corruption, addressing governance issues. They discuss these thematics and can take solutions. So I hope the educational focus is not misunderstood in this context. Okay, I think, Richard, maybe we go to the next step because of time. I see a few other hands, but we'll for now move forward because otherwise we will not have enough time for you to do some group work. Richard, can I hand over to you?
Thank you so much, Sushit. And thank you all of you for the wonderful interactions and questions in this part. Of course, again, it's reflections that we can continue to have. Thankfully, there's the group, the Telegram group, that we can continue to reflect on some of these contests and situations that we faced in different local communities, states, or in the entire country as well, to see how we find sustainable solutions. I see also there's a direct message to me about questions around funding. Again, there are no, I mean, usually the approach I use is like we first of all look at what solutions we want to bring, who are the beneficiaries of these solutions, how do we want to do them, before we begin to think of the resources that we need, because we cannot start from the top down and say, okay, we need funding to do something, but first, what do you want to do? So in terms of looking for fundings, there might be a pocket of resources here and there, but it will need some levels of mapping to identify where those resources are, what they are addressing. But then you also need to have a very targeted project, or where you want to make this impact and what type of impact you are seeking to do. So it goes again back to you identifying the needs, the contests that you want to work, what are the needs of this contest, and how do you mainstream your actions to addressing those, contributing to addressing those contests. And then the question of funding would come as part of the resources that you need to bring about the solutions that you're proposing. Now we will be breaking into groups to see how we can discuss some of these solutions, or some of these ideas of participation that we have mentioned, and how we can begin to reflect maybe around concrete examples or cases in our society. These are not, I mean, like Sushit said, these are not prescriptions, but it's all already to open the space to dialogue around possibilities and what you need to take into considerations when you are thinking about your solutions in the context where you live. So just a second, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. I'm putting a link of the Jamboard there, and I'm sharing my screen. So we've put together a couple of case studies where we would like you to meet in group and to discuss this case study, looking at stakeholders that can support you when you have these kind of cases. For example, in the first case, we are looking at students or children of Peace Club in a state in River State wanting to implement a campaign or create awareness about peace and want to focus on promoting understanding and dialogue about the 8 pillars of peace in their community. If I'm sure you still remember from the last week exercise, the 8 pillars of peace, and Sushit just I went through them again this morning in his presentation. So we want to see, when you are thinking of a peace initiative in your community or in this community that we present in the case study, how do you bring into context some of these 8 pillars of peace in thinking your peace project or peace program, and how do you identify who are the people that you will need to work with as key stakeholders to bring about the success of such program. So this is what we would like you to go in group and to reflect for the next couple of minutes on some of these ideas and come up with suggestions as to how you would develop this program. And then the second aspect are the stakeholders that you would like to engage in doing that. I don't know if that's clear. So each of you, yeah.
Richard,
Sorry.
if I can come in to just to clarify, in the first part, you'll find a case study. Think of how you will meaningfully make sure that it's a very high quality participatory opportunity for children and young people to lead an initiative. That's the first part. When you start to think about what is your role in supporting them. So it's not you taking over the initiative, it's how do you play the supporting role for them. And then in the second part, then think of who do you need to bring in to support that process further beyond yourself? Do you need who from the community, different stakeholders do you need to bring in, and how do you bring them in?
Thank you, Sushit. So let me just do this. Okay. So it goes back to the contest that you'll be working on. So each of you would work within this contest to think around the participatory process in addressing your own contest. And then the second part is just identifying the stakeholders that you will need to work with to make that successful. So I'm just putting the questions in the chat. And then you also have the link that I've shared. We will put you in 10 groups and you have to work within 20 to 30 minutes and to come up with thoughts around that. I mean, I know it's a short time to think about a whole elaborate plan. The most important thing is to see how you want to ensure participation in that project, supposing this is a project that you have to implement in your community. And then second part is the key stakeholders that you would like to work with. And then this also brings us to one part of the transformative pedagogy that we talked about, which is the idea of a whole system or whole society approach. So who within the society can help you bring about this effective implementation or sustainable implementation of the project that you would like to have. So there are 5 slides in the Jamboard. Each one corresponds to 2 groups. So you see for group 1 and 2, group 2 and 3, and so forth and so on. And you just need to choose a facilitator in your group and someone to take note of the suggestions that you're making and come up with some proposals, and we will meet in plenary to discuss them. Is that clear? Thumbs up, thumbs down, question in the chat. Yes, I will send the link to the Jamboard again.
I have also shared these on the Telegram group, so you'll find the case studies as well as the 2 questions to focus on the Telegram group as well.
Thank you, Soshit. Okay, so let me put us now in group. So you see the group now, you just need to click to rejoin your group.
Richard, some people say they need access to the Jamboard. If you can change the access.
Yes, I will deactivate the mod here.
Please click join breakout room.
Please don't draw on the Jamboard. Only those who knows how to use it should write on it. Otherwise, you will delete the things. So now it's giving editing right to everyone, but please don't draw on it. Yes, Sushit. So do click on the group link on your screen and to rejoin the group. To see a few of you here. Try to join the group. Or if you were in a group and you got kicked out, let us know and we can put you back in that group. As a Philip, normally you should have a group, but I'll put you in a group now. Smith, I just put you in group 1. Maybe you should accept the invitation. Zahuma, you're in group 8. I'll put you back in group 8. Okay. Smith to group 10. Back. I think everyone is back. Thank you, and sorry that I imagine some of you are still discussing in your group and have not finished. But again, as I said at the beginning, we were not expecting that you would have an elaborate program to address the context that you're working with, but already to see the planning process, what is happening, and how you're dealing with the discussions in your group. Again, just to reemphasize, as I said yesterday, that the process is as important as the end. So how the participation is happening in your group would also mirror how you would foresee a very participatory process when you organize your own event at your contest or in your contest or in the state that you're working in based on the contest that you have received. So we are going to have maybe 1 minute and a half per group to quickly present the discussions in your group, but also maybe if you can share how the discussion is happening, what is the spirit? Was it very engaging? Was there difficulties to participating in your group due to technical issues or other issues? It would be good to hear some of this comment. So for now, I would only ask the group leaders to raise their hand and not every other person. We can take questions or comment later. But if you're raising your hand, I would assume that you're representing a group and want to present on behalf of the group. So 1 minute and a half each per group, and we would get back to discussing in general. So for now, I would take the first one. I don't know which group you're presenting, but Zigwai.
Thank you so much. I'm representing group 4, and I will just go through what we did and then I'll talk about the process. So for our program, we titled it Peace Education for Youth and Children in Ebonyi. And for development of our program, we decided that the first step will be an advocacy visit to the communities and schools to engage with students and decide what the problem is based on their inputs and the needs analysis. Then we will need to introduce ourselves and identify with their personal needs, regardless of the conflicts that we're focusing on. Then we would identify stakeholders and collect information from these individual stakeholders on the context of the conflict, devoid of what we already have as our own plan. And then we'll use their inputs to review the plans that we came with. Then we'll get the context of the conflict and carry out a conflict analysis. Next, we'll create activities that they can participate in based on the solutions that they preferred, in line with what we also, ideas that we also have, so that they can own the process in building empathy and mutual respect. Then we design a toolkit for engagement for the period of 6 months, which was given to us, while we guide them using the 8 pillars of peace. After the implementation process, and even during the implementation process, we'll be carrying out evaluation to see what is going right, what is going wrong, and how we can improve the process. The stakeholders we'll be working with will be community leaders, the parents, guardians of these children, the school authorities, the children themselves and the youths, religious leaders, security agencies, Rotaractors, which is the youth group of Rotary, because we're working with children and youths, the political leaders, because we need them to also be able to speak on what's going on in their constituencies as representatives of these communities, the vendors that we'll be relating with through the period, because we'll be using materials and resources, the media for projecting and amplifying the work we're doing, and also the government, because they are key stakeholders in the policies that would help to improve the lives of these people. For the process for us, at the beginning of the process, there was a bit of conflict of understanding because some persons had not seen the context of the work that was posted on Telegram. But at some point, when everybody came on the same page, it was easy to navigate through, and then we had everybody throwing in pointers, and we had Rotary members in the group. So it also helped to use practical experience to build our program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zigwai. That's great, and it's good to hear also the the dynamic in the group, and I guess it's probably similar for the group. Okay, since we have the case study for group 3 and 4, can we have someone who speaks for group 3? If you can put your name in the chat, let me know who is representing group 3.
It says on the chat, Brenda is to represent group 3.
Brenda, okay, yes. Brenda, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Brenda.
My name is Brenda Max. I'm Rotarian Brenda Max, and I'm representing group 3. And so we discussed, we were, I think, about 11 or 12 participants in group 3. And we all agreed that though there were two communities warring in a state, the best thing was to approach the two communities separately. And when we approach the two communities, we're going to engage with the major the pillars in the communities, like the traditional rulers, the religious rulers, the women groups, the youth groups, and the schools. And that we're going to introduce ourselves and tell them what we came to do. And we're going to have a buy-in in the community by organizing outreaches in the community to get them to know us, like health outreaches or relief outreaches. And that after that, we're going to engage these pillars differently to organize an outreach for the children, sort of like a sports tournament or an excursion for the children. In that way, we're able to isolate the young people in that community, and we bring them together in sports tournaments. With that, we were able to have access to them and start introducing them to the 8 pillars of peace while they are training for either the sports tournaments or the excursions. And this is going on in both communities. And so with that, we have the opportunity to start sensitizing them on peace. And then after that, we now move to the next phase, which is to migrate them to a program where they have skill acquisition and integrate it with the competitions to get the two communities to come together at that point, either in competitions and in the skill acquisitions. And we have leadership trainings for these young people where they have the opportunity to start talking about their problems and, have an opportunity to vent using the 8 pillars of peace while we guide them through it. And so with this way, they can, find solutions to their problems themselves while we by the sides guide them through that. And while having this conversation, it was very interesting to find that everybody participated. People brought, in their ideas to fine tune it, agreed on bringing in the political stakeholders too, where we agree. Some of them also are parents, teachers, and all that. So participation was at least 95% in my group. Some of them had network issues, and we saw in the chat that where they mentioned why they couldn't participate, but it was fully participatory. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. It's good to know that it was fully participatory. 95% is good. It's an A. Yeah, I mean, just a quick comment on, it's a good idea, and it's good that you also want to engage, first of all, the different communities separately and then together. But then you had also thought of doing a competitions, even though as good as this might be, sometimes you also need to evaluate with the competition, reinforce the peace or even create further division, So sometimes it's a question that you need to reflect on and to be sure that the solutions or the approach that you are proposing isn't further creating the divide or creating a situation that could lead to conflict. So I want to believe that you have reflected that maybe you that reach a place where competition is no longer bringing enmity between them, but that they understand the spirit of sportsmanship, of friendship, and all that before they engage with each other. Yeah, but this is just a comment for you to reflect. Yeah. Yes, Brenda.
Thank you. And that's why we said we're going to do it individually. With each community first. The competition in each community at the first time is to sensitize them to peace before we bring them together.
Right. Thank you.
I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you. Yeah. So, okay, thank you. I would take someone from group 1 and 2. I see there's Bama.
Yeah, good morning, Richard. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, the case study is already on the screen.
Yeah, you for group 1 or for group 2?
Group 1 and 2 were grouped together, I guess.
Yeah, the question is together, but there were 2. Yeah, okay.
I was on group 2. Now,
okay.
The scenario we had to do with a peace club within a school in Rivers State, planning to campaign to create awareness about peace. I want to focus on promoting understanding and dialogue about the 8 pillars in their community. How we saw ourselves, we saw first ourselves as facilitators. And the thing was for us to first identify what the first thing to do was. And we agreed that the first step to take was to educate the students from the school, the children from the school, on the 8 pillars of peace and what it entails. Now, we also thought that the assignment wasn't supposed to be like a one-day thing, because we know that in planning all these things at times, we should also have timelines. So we thought that after educating them to the extent that we felt that they understood it well, we would allow them go back home, sleep over it, then come back with their own interventions. Now, their interventions they will present will be tailor-made to issues they've identified based on the understanding of the 8 pillars of peace, because it's based on their understanding too that they will reach out. Now, somebody draw our attention to the ladder we worked on yesterday. So we don't get to be the ones initiating without having them initiate the process. So the only thing we were going to be doing as young adults or youths at this stage was to just educate them. The rest was supposed to now come from them, and we would participate as wingers, just to be there to cushion effects or serve as buffers for them. Now, upon returning, when they present whatever they are presenting, because we are not to now give them the scenario, we are now to guide them in for instance, selecting their stakeholders. The first stakeholder we identified that may be needed will be the permitting agency, which will be the Ministry of Education of the states in question, which would also involve the supervisor of education in that particular locality where they are found. Now, beyond that, some other people mentioned that they should also partner with religious leaders and community leaders, as well as maybe their political leaders. For instance, the councillor who is the government at that level whatsoever. But it was also pointed out that there are issues of bureaucracy while trying to engage some of these partners, and that a permission from the Ministry of Education allowing the students carry out that activities, serving as protection for them, was quite enough for the children to go around. Now, what other groups are they to partner? We thought of other youth organizations, youth-based organizations. We identified Boys Brigade, we identified Rotaractors, we identified other, maybe Man No War, Boy Scouts, Guest Guide, and the rest of them. Those other ones. So we also talked about, because we're creating partnerships.
If you can try to conclude, Bama, so that we can also give opportunity to other group, yeah.
Okay. So we also talked about engaging media houses who would take advantage of their corporate social responsibility for the children to present whatever it is they are learned in the process. I think
Thank you.
would hold them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if I can also advise or suggest to other group to kind of try to summarize. I mean, if you're listing maybe civil society organizations or youth organizations, you can group them, so you don't have to mention the names of each individual organizations that you might need to. The most interesting thing is just to have your reflection about what you think, how you want to ensure participation of children or empower them to be able to get involved in the collective action. This is more important than giving like the whole rundown of the program that you want to organize. We know that you need time to be able to figure that all out, but just a quick thought around what you think about how you want to engage them or empower them to be able to do these collective actions within the context that you're working. And then the second point would be which stakeholder, which type of stakeholder you might want to engage in this process. Is there anyone from group one who want to speak on this last scenario? Okay, let me take Samaila. I don't know which group you're representing.
Group 7.
Okay, go on.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, Group 7, though we didn't get to see the case study on time, but we were able to nonetheless come up with our recommendations as to how we can empower young people to take collective action. And one of the ways is to really sensitize them on the need for peace, positive peace, and its own benefits to them and their community. And then once they understand the needs and the benefits that positive peace has upon them, they already will buy into whatever initiative will be brought to them because they have seen the inherent benefits that will be done. And we'll also discuss that we will also carry out more advocacy campaigns in the community and sensitization to many people so that altogether everyone will have an understanding of what is this positive peace and what are the benefits for an individual and for the community at large, such that whatever program that is being championed in the name of peace building or peace initiative, every other person knowing the benefit will largely latch on and be part of it. And then we also identified stakeholders such as the faith-based organization, community leaders. We also identify youth and women groups, non-governmental organizations, and faith and other philanthropists from the community who we believe would be vital in carrying out this peace initiative, because altogether, none of them will benefit if there is absence of peace in their community. None of them will thrive. None of them will enjoy whatever they want to enjoy in that community. And so we believe that altogether, these people, once they are brought on board and they are fully briefed on the benefit of positive peace, then altogether they will not be coerced. They will flow in naturally because everybody would like to be part of a peaceful community. And these are how we thought that we will tackle this particular issue. And we say that going forward, we'll continue with this engagement so that there won't be a breakdown in communication.
Thank you, Samaila. I just, because we don't have time anymore, I would really want us to go like really fast. So let me take you, Tajuddin. Which group are you representing? Tajuddin.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. I'm representing Group 6. We had 12 members. The group was coordinated by Dr. Hamid Abdullahi. It was a very interactive session. We looked at, we didn't have any case study in our own case because no case study was presented to us, but we looked at the general framework of the intervention that we had to work on in the course of the general plenary session earlier before we broke into sessions. Now, that is developing a program for children and young people to take collective action and all of that. So The interaction that we had was in 3 parts. First, we look at an intervention, a project that we feel would be appropriate for our discussion. And 2, we look at the program in terms of the context and the content. I thought we look at stakeholders that would be necessary for us to implement effectively this intervention. So we consider 3 options in regards to the project. We settle at the end of the day, we settle for education support program. That is, in this sense, the education support program is designed to be like a youth for youth intervention, whereby concerned youth in a local community will support their colleagues to have access to education. So through this intervention, through this project, the concerned stakeholder, the concerned youth will mobilize resources towards helping their colleagues to have access to education. They will create awareness, mount an awareness campaign through outreaches and through the social media and other necessary platforms on the critical place of education to children and youth. And in specific terms, also, what will be done by this group, by this team that is carrying out this intervention? Maybe, for example, issues of payment for school fees, examinations, and school items, books, and other essentials. They also will organize remedial classes where necessary for some of their colleagues who will need extra attention. They will also mobilize for volunteer teachers, mentors, counselors, and others so that they can build a very strong support system around the project. With regard to
thank you, Ted. Yeah.
With regard to the stakeholders, we identify the number of critical stakeholders. For example, there has to be a major NGO that to serve as the pillar of this initiative. We are suggesting Rotary International, the Ministry of Education, civil society groups, SDG office, community leaders and parents, local political leaders, like a representative of the community at whatever level of political space, the media, and youth themselves. So there are some of the critical stakeholders that we feel will be necessary for us to effectively implement this project at the local level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tajuddin. What group was it again?
Group 6.
Group 6, okay. Yeah, anyway, there was case study for all the groups. So sometimes when you don't have the case study, you should ask or put in the chat for the future, of course, but we had the case study for each group. Yeah, Yanis. Yanis, what group are you representing, Yanis? Yanis?
Yeah, I'm representing group 8. Yeah.
Group 8, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so we said we were going to start by organizing a program, a drama program for the children and young people. We would use that as a means of sharing awareness. Maybe we would do an audition for the kids and the children, just to plan it and then send out flyers by means of creating awareness. And then the people who would be part of this drama presentation, we would allow them to make decisions, come up with problems where we guide them with the 8 pillars of peace, have them inculcate every single pillar while planning the drama which they would have, and then make sure that while they do that, they would keep in with all of these pillars, make sure that every single one of them is attended to and not this drama also in mind, try not to be partial, or make sure that it's a drama that is going to that would circle every area and not be particularly religious or anything of that sort. And the drama was come up with because it would be something enjoyable for them and participatory. And then that drama festival or presentation or the program would be one that would encourage many people to attend. And then while that is being organized on that day, even more awareness and sensitization would be given about peace and also the pillars of peace, and in keeping with each and every one of the pillar and how it can be attended to in various communities. By this form of presentation, we would be able to appeal to head teachers of schools, religious leaders, village heads, community leaders, every one of them, and get them to support. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. I really apologize. I'm not able to take the other groups, so maybe I would just ask you to put your comments or your thinking in the chat, and we would look. Others can read as well. My sincere apologies, but anyway, thank to each of your group for discussing this. I mean, I wasn't expecting that you would go this far to think already of specific project, but some of you already having idea on how your program will look at. Again, when designing this kind of activity, one thing that can be very useful for you is the transformative pedagogy that Sushit has presented yesterday and that we briefly talked about today. Of course, incorporating the 8 pillars of peace, but then it's not just teaching about the 8 pillars of peace, but how you can use those platforms that you are creating to reflect on the issues that are related to those pillars in terms of is it well-being, is it education and all that. How do we address those issues related to those pillars and make sure that within our interventions, we are trying to solve issues that are identified in those areas, and not just to go to the class or to the schools to teach the people like, there are 8 pillars of peace and this is what it is. So it's again moving beyond just giving the basic knowledge to actually helping people identifying solutions in those areas. And it's also good that you have identified a number of key stakeholders. Sometimes the lists are inexhaustible, but then sometimes you also need to contextualize within your context who are the most relevant to the things that you want to do. You can think of other stakeholders in other areas for other projects, but at each time, perhaps you also need to narrow down to very specific relevant stakeholders who would have a bigger impact in the project that you want to implement. Yeah, so I hope that some of these tools or this reflective process can be helpful for you when you are planning program, and to pay attention in terms of participation that we have mentioned. I went through the other group, some of the group, and I also saw maybe the dynamics, but then it's something that you need to look at when you are thinking of participations. It's not a question of manipulation, decoration, or tokenism, but it's actually something that you actually create that enabling space that the participation is happening real, that people are taking leadership on themselves and not being imposed ideas on what to do. So thank you again for this exercise, and I hope that it was useful for you. And I will give back to Sushit to conclude this session. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for everyone for meaningfully engaging in the group work and bringing your ideas into discussion. I saw some good thinking already, but I would encourage you to think further. Somebody had said that it would be sometimes good to do also do individual work, not just group task. I think it is Chibuka who has suggested that. So I think you now in this collective learning experience, when you come together online, it's a good time to do group work. But when you go back now, start thinking more concretely, more specific about your context and how could you build a program that is really having that highest levels of youth participation. There are initiatives that can be national examples of young people, youth-led peace building can take place inside your program. And how do you do that in a way without taking ownership from the young people as well? So that's the challenge that we present to you. We are at the end of the 3 sessions we have for this week. As I mentioned, we will share the documents, the presentations we've had, along with also the youth guide. And then I also I'm sharing a link on the chat. This link is to an online course that UNESCO IGBA has on transformative pedagogy. It's a self-paced course online. If anybody is interested to really know a bit more in depth about transformative pedagogy, you can also follow that course, and it will allow you to get a certificate online. And if you have questions, you can approach UNESCO IGBA about it. For now, since we're at the end of this process, I would invite us to take maybe a couple of minutes before we go to the closing to really think about what am I taking away. I've spent 2 weeks now engaged in about 3, 6, 7 online sessions, including the opening. And we are coming to an end of this learning experience for 2 weeks. What have you learned? What are your takeaways? Take a few minutes to think, and maybe you can use the chat to share with us what are some things, the most important learning that you are taking away from this, and how do you intend to put this into action? Couple of reflections if you can share in the chat. And in the meantime, we'll get prepared to have a short closing. So I give you a couple of minutes to complete that reflection. And in the meantime, I also to let you know that with that, Richard and myself, we complete our task of being the facilitators for these 3 sessions. We represent an organization called Arigato International that UNESCO IGBA has requested us to help lead the sessions in terms of facilitators. And this is the training offered by UNESCO IGBA during the 2nd week. And with that, yeah, I am waiting for a few messages on the chat about what are your key takeaways? What were some of the key things that you are taking away following this 2 weeks of training? Lugard is saying that peace can be a very positive thing, that there's something beyond negative peace, the idea of positive peace. Crimson talks about the absence of violence may not be achievable, but in my own small way, I can make the world a better place by using the 8 pillars of peace. It's, of course, sometimes we can't directly prevent all forms of violence taking place, but there is a contribution we can take nevertheless towards positive peace in our own context. Hillary says, peace building is a subject matter that everyone should get involved and different capacities within their disposal. Exactly, Hillary. I think there's a lot to learn around peace building. If you haven't studied or if you haven't explored peace building, there is a lot of theories and approaches and practices that you can learn from. So please do invest in that and build your capacity so that you can be more effective in your work. Michael says that he has finished the IEP Peace Academy course, but there's a question around the payment, and I think it was clarified there is no payment required for this particular group, so you will receive a certificate even if you not made a payment. Wuya, I'm taking away the importance of peace building cannot be overemphasized, and how this knowledge will help me maintain peace in my community. Sandra says, my takeaway is the deep explanations on the difference between negative and positive peace. I have learned what peace and positive peace building is about. I have learned that there is negative and positive peace, and I know that the negative peace is not enough. There is a need to have positive peace, and I also have learned how to attempt to achieve this. Thanks. That's Tony. So I see a lot of key takeaways being shared. I want you to think how you put this now into action. It's easy for us to keep going and learning at activities, but how do we translate this knowledge into action now is what makes our communities transform. So with that invitation, we thank you for your active participation and being engaging over these last 3 sessions. On behalf of Richard and myself, thank you. And I hand over to Pietro for the closing. Again, I'll post the link to the online a course that UNESCO IGBA has on transformative pedagogy. If anybody wants to follow it, please feel free to do so.
Yes, and Suchit, I have put it on the chat and it gives them on how to enroll and how to proceed. It has all the information.
Sure.
Yes, and also the contact person whom to contact if they need any support on the during the training time.
Thank you. Pietro, can we hand over to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Succinct, and congratulations to all the participants once more. We have finally come to the end of the 2 weeks training, and I would say that it's been very impactful. The the eye-opening session, the experience sharing, the training proper, and everything has been amazing. And I would say congratulations to all the participants that had made it through this process so far, to have remained steadfast and have remained with us all through. It takes discipline and commitment, and we do not take that for granted. Let me quickly add that we have high-ranking Rotarians, UNESCO, ICPA, and IEP delegates on the call to bring the session to a closure. But before they do that, let me make some quick announcements. One is that we'll be having the batch 2 cohort of this training in July. It's been agreed that we run this program twice a year. So in July, we'll be expecting many of those on this call to have implemented a couple of projects with us, many collaborations and intervention initiatives to have materialized from this engagement. Also, we'll be establishing a couple of social media handles, Facebook inclusive with the Telegram platform. After this training, the Telegram platform will be open for everyone to be able to communicate and share further ideas. It was locked to make sure that we don't lose information along the line so that we all stay focused for the training. Going forward as well, I've shared the Telegram link on the chat box. So if you're not on the Telegram link, please come on board. And like someone rightly observed, some of these intervention programs could be better knitted together individually or per organization, as the case may be. But either method you choose to deploy, depending on your local community or your specialization or area of influence, we're expecting you to write to us for partnership, write to us for collaboration, propose intervention programs that could be implemented, not just within your local communities, but that could be scaled up across the country to actualize positive peace. Rotary is your partner going forward. You are our field agents and our go-to persons in your local communities going forward. Quickly, let me address the issues of certificates, as someone rightly inquired. At the end of this training, you're expected to write a test or examination, as the case may be. I alluded to that in the opening ceremony, and the training team have also made mention of those processes. So you'll be followed up. A link has been shared on several guidelines, including on how to get your name well spelled on the certificate. But most importantly, a link will be shared for you to take the exam proper. I sent out a mail early this morning on guidelines. We advise you to replay these recordings and go through your presentation slides so as to refresh your memory before taking this exam, because you can only attempt them at 2 occasions. And after 2 occasions, you won't be able to. We hope everyone on the call and anyone that participated will scale through this process and become worthy partners to activate positive peace in Nigeria. With no more waste of time, I would like to invite Ms. Maria Jose Maldonado, IEP Middle East Program Manager. So please give a closing remark and thanks from IEP Institute. From IEP Institute, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Pietro, for the kind introduction. And also thank you very much for having me here today. As mentioned, my name is Maria Jose Maldonado, and I'm the Program Manager of the Institute for Economics and Peace for Middle East and Northern Africa and Europe. And I am based in Brussels. And it's very inspiring to be here with you today, to have listened to the very insightful case studies that you're working on, and also all the insightful takeaways that you wrote in the chat. I was very happy to hear all that. So first of all, I would like to thank all the people that, all the moderators and all the organizations that made this training possible. So of course, starting by the UNESCO IICDA, the Arigato International African Union, the Rotary Inter-Country Committee for Great Britain and Ireland, and Rotary clubs in Nigeria, as well as the Institute for Economics and Peace Harare office. Thank you very much for making this happen. And of course, thank you a lot to the participants for being so engaged throughout the training and really motivated to learn more about peace. It is very inspiring to see all the takeaways from you and how much you have learned. So I want to speak about a bit on how you can continue your work on positive peace. And I hope that you take this knowledge with you and that you will make use of it, of course, throughout the projects that you do and also in your own work from any sector that you work. Certainly, one of the main key takeaways is that you can use positive peace through any project that you're working on and any sector that you are currently working on. As we talked about, it's part of the system and you all contribute to it. So please make sure to use this in the future, whether it is in your own research, in your work, in your daily life, in discussions, however it's helpful to you and to others, for sure. And I'd also like to speak about the value of networks as well. I hope that you do notice that you had the chance and the opportunity to connect to over 100 peace builders as well. And there's so much value to that. Now, not only did you get the chance to meet people who have compatible objectives with you, but also people who are motivated to engage and contribute to peace building. So I do hope that you stay in touch, that you stay connected, that you continue to share your ideas for projects and initiatives with the others, and most of all, that you will also share and promote and support the projects of others. So thank you again so much for engaging in peace building. And I hope that you take all that you learned in this training with you and now implement positive peace in your daily lives and daily work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maria, for those really cogent instructions. The value of network cannot really be overemphasized. I would say thank you for coming. Be rest assured that the peace practitioners on the call would make do and fly with the information they've gathered so far. Thank you very much once more. Second on our list, please, we would like to invite Mr. Saliu Sao, Senior Program Specialist at UNESCO ICPA, to please give us his closing remarks and goodwill message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So as you said, my name is Saliu Sal. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator of UNESCO ICPA based in Addis Ababa. And I'm talking on behalf of Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, Director of the Institute. As she did during the opening ceremony, she would have much liked to attend this closing ceremony and properly thank you. But due to conflict of time, she could not do so. So I'm doing all this on her behalf. So esteemed representatives from the Rotary, EIP, and representatives from different districts, Mr. Shusit, facilitator from Arigato International, dear ICPA colleagues, distinguished participants, I will really start by expressing my heartfelt thanks to all participants and facilitators who have made the 2 weeks rich capacity building workshop and has witnessed the different testimonies and the different messages you have shared as the takeaway at the end of this workshop. I sincerely thank all the presenters, participants, and facilitators who have contributed to this important training, especially during this time when we need peace, resilience, and empathy more than ever before, as all countries are experiencing conflicts, violence, together with all the challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects. UNESCO ICPA, as you may know, has been supporting peace education for the prevention of violence and violent extremism since 2017, with the support from the government of Japan. Peace is one of the African Union's top priorities. Aspiration 4 of Agenda 2063 emphasizes that, I quote, "A culture of peace and tolerance shall be nurtured in Africa's children and youth through peace education," unquote. The Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CESA 2016-2025, calls for peace education and safeguarding education in times of emergency and ensuring safe teaching and learning environments. Violence begins in the human mind, but the Constitution of UNESCO, and especially in the preamble of that constitution, reminds us that peace also does. Since the wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed. I have also, of course, quoted the preamble. Peace building, however, would not be sustainable if the efforts are not mainstreamed in education and implanted in the minds of young people. We also know that capacity building, experience sharing, and dialogue are crucial components of all peace building efforts in the education sector. With education as the key platform for peace building, teachers play an imperative role in transforming the minds of young people. The Security Council Resolution 2250 on youth, peace and security puts youth at the very heart of peace building efforts. In this case, the role of higher education and youth-led organizations, including Rotary clubs, is really immense and tremendous. For 8 days, you have analyzed your context, positive peace framework, studied ethics and transformative pedagogy, and learned about children and youth-led initiatives. Now comes the time for the spotlight to be turned to you. Following a cascade model, it is your turn to bring the training back to your community and context and introduce your own targets to the approaches of peace building. We must go beyond simply being committed to social transformation. We must act on our commitments. We must engage with community, with youth, with teachers, with school leaders, and with students to collectively transform our own societies through empathetic and ethical conduct. I would like to thank once again the government of Japan for the financial support for this good and noble cause. Thank you very much to Arigato International for co-facilitating this event with UNESCO ICBA, Rotary International, Nigeria, and IEP. Thank you very much again and good luck. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, UNESCO ICBA. You've been really supportive of the program, and we can assure you that this partnership and collaboration would continue and yield good peace ambassadors to champion positive peace in Nigeria and in Africa. Thank you very much. Let me quickly mention that the proposal and programs that we advise participants to send to us could be sent through email, not through this chat box or something. You can email it to us. I think everyone on the call have my personal email. So please, you can send us the project or program concept to go through and work with you to actualize this initiative. So the last but definitely not the least, to give us the organizational remarks and bring an end to this 2 weeks training is no other but Rotarian Dr. Wole Kukoyi, Chairman, Rotary Intercountry Committee, Nigeria. Please, my chairman, you have the floor. Please, can we unmute Dr. Kukoyi?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, my dear Lieutenant Petro, for this wonderful opportunity once again. Last week I was here when the program started. It was a great pleasure to be here again when this very important training is ending. I remember last week when we started, we promised that this is going to be the beginning of the life experience for the participants. And I'm sure with the hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, the participants are no doubt excited about what they have planned in this It's a 10-day program. It's been so action-packed that I'm sure they've enjoyed every minute of it. As we all know, peace is a universal commodity that the whole world needs. But somehow it's becoming elusive, and that's the reason why this training was organized. We need peace to enjoy every other aspect of life. When there's no peace, there's no love, and all other things of life cannot be enjoyed. And that is why this training is so crucial and so important, not just to the participants, but to the world at large. In the quest for peace in the world, everyone is a stakeholder and everyone has a responsibility to play, be it at the individual level, community level, national and international levels. And I'm sure this training has brought forth a critical force of leaders in peace building and the conflict management. As we all know, Nigeria faces a lot of challenges. And this country currently needs the participants who are just coming out of this training, and people of like minds at a time like this, when this country is facing enormous and serious challenges in the areas of security and safety, and all aspects of our daily living. On behalf of Rotary's Inter-Country Committee of Great Britain and Ireland and Nigeria, I appreciate all the collaborating organizations that facilitated this program and have provided ample support for the success of the program. IEP, UNESCO, AU, and other such organizations are so grateful to you for the wonderful support that you have made to ensure the success of this program. The heroes of this training are the participants who are just graduating today. I'm sure they have gainfully taken part in the events and all the facilitation that they are exposed to in the past 2 weeks. And I'm sure they've been equipped with the tools and the rudiments needed to change the narrative of peace locally and internationally. Let me tell you that the real job starts now. You have to go into your communities to put into practice what you have learned at this training. And I'm sure all of you will gladly do that. For some of you who are already Rotarians, please spread the word by engaging in peace building and conflict resolution activities at your club and also at the district level. And for those who are not Rotarians, I invite you to join an army of 1.3 million Rotarians all over the world, and definitely you'll discover a new world of service. I most especially thank and appreciate Lieutenant Petro. I call him the guru of peace affairs, positive peace affairs. You've done so wonderfully well, and we must thank your efforts and all your passion for peace projects. We in ICC, we value you so much, and very, very happy and grateful that we've been able to do this training very successfully. Once again, on behalf of ICC, Nigeria, and Great Britain and Ireland, I want to thank all of you once again, resource persons, collaborators, other organizations, and in particular the participants who have gone through this training. I thank you all, and we are looking forward to future projects and engagements in the area of peace building. Thank you once again, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Rotarian, we hereby close this session and wish you good luck. Every further communications shall be through email and social media, and we wish you good luck in your examination processes and peace intervention project execution. God bless.
Yeah, true. I don't know. They
So
asked
can
for a
we-
group photograph. I don't know if you remember that we can do this before others log off.